Think you know what entry level means in 2025? The reality is a lot more complicated. According to recent data, over a third of entry-level job postings now demand at least 3 years of experience. Employers are not just looking for enthusiasm. They want candidates who already have a track record, even for roles that should be open to beginners. The World Economic Forum reports that 60% of employers expect broad digital skills by 2030, while 22% of current roles could disappear entirely. Salaries, meanwhile, have barely kept up with inflation. Some postings offer wages that would have been considered average 5 years ago, despite listing a laundry list of requirements. In this climate, it's no surprise that nearly half of workers say job insecurity is a major source of stress. So what does entry-level even mean anymore? The numbers behind these job postings tell a story that's hard to ignore. The 2025 entry-level paradox. Across industries, the expectations for new hires have shifted in ways that make so-called entry-level roles almost unrecognizable. In 2025, LinkedIn data shows that 35% of entry-level jobs now require 3 or more years of experience. For someone just out of school or switching careers, this requirement alone is enough to shut them out of the running before they even begin. The World Economic Forum adds another layer to the challenge. By 2030, 22% of current job roles are expected to disappear entirely, raising the stakes for those trying to get a foothold. Employers have quietly redefined what it means to be entry-level. Some roles demand little more than a willingness to learn, while others expect up to 5 years of prior experience. This inconsistency leaves applicants guessing about whether they're even eligible. The experience requirement is often used as a filter, especially when companies face a flood of applications. It's an efficient way to shrink the pile, but it means that talented people without traditional backgrounds rarely get a chance to prove themselves. Internships and side projects, once seen as ways to bridge the gap, now have their own barriers. Increasingly, internships require previous internship experience, creating a feedback loop that's nearly impossible to break. Side hustles, like freelance gigs or launching small ventures, demand time, resources, and a financial safety net that not everyone has. For many, these supposed stepping stones have become obstacles in their own right. Employers often justify these higher bars by pointing to training costs. Hiring someone who already knows the ropes saves money and time, at least in theory. But this approach narrows the field and can limit the diversity of thought within an organization. Companies miss out on fresh perspectives and creative problem-solving that come from people who see things differently. In effect, the drive to reduce onboarding costs may be costing companies more in the long run. The mismatch between what schools teach and what employers want only deepens the problem. Many graduates find that their degrees don't line up with current job requirements, which results in underemployment and stagnant wages. The average starting salary for entry-level roles in 2025 is $48,750, just 7% higher than it was 5 years ago. But with cumulative inflation at 22%, new hires actually bring home less in real terms than their predecessors. Meanwhile, 54% of workers report that constant policy changes at work are a major source of stress, according to the American Psychological Association. Credential inflation is another hurdle. Where a bachelor's degree once opened doors, more postings now list master's preferred, particularly in fields like communications and public administration. Instead of a graduate degree, 67% of employers in 2025 say they want to see a portfolio that proves real-world skills. This shift piles on more pressure, as applicants scramble to build impressive portfolios while juggling school, internships, and part-time work. Certain industries and regions make the situation even tougher. In healthcare technology, most entry-level roles require certifications that take months to earn. Consulting firms expect new hires to show completed case studies from prior work. In tech hubs, software engineering jobs labeled as entry-level often expect 4 years of experience, nearly double the national average. Applicants must choose between competing in saturated urban centers or moving to markets with fewer jobs but lower barriers. Month by month, these requirements continue to inch upward, while salaries lag behind. The result is a hiring environment where companies raise the bar to manage applicant volume and risk missing out on candidates who could thrive if given a chance. This cycle shapes the job market in 2025, making it a place where the odds seem stacked against anyone trying to start out. Why companies keep raising the bar. Employers in 2025 are operating in an environment where the supply of job seekers far outpaces available positions. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports 7.8 million job openings, but only 5.5 million hires, highlighting just how competitive each posting has become. With such a large pool of applicants, companies can afford to be highly selective, tightening requirements for even the most junior roles. This selectivity isn't always about finding the best fit for the job. It's often about managing overwhelming application volumes and exercising control over the hiring process. The adoption of AI in recruitment has only intensified this trend. Gartner reports that 76% of HR departments now use AI-powered tools to scan resumes, filter candidates, and even schedule interviews. These systems allow companies to sift through thousands of applications in minutes, flagging only those that match a specific set of keywords or experience levels. As a result, candidates who don't meet every listed requirement, sometimes down to the exact number of years in a particular software, are filtered out before a human ever reviews their profile. The process rewards applicants who fit a narrow mold and leaves little room for those with unconventional backgrounds or transferable skills. Internal company practices also play a role in raising the bar. When firms promote from within, they often turn to external candidates to fill the resulting vacancies. But instead of recalibrating the requirements for these backfilled roles, hiring managers tend to base job descriptions on the skills of the person who just moved up, someone who gained their expertise over years on the job. This approach sets an unrealistic standard for external applicants, who are expected to walk in with the same level of experience as someone who's already been trained and developed internally. The rationale for these higher requirements is often framed as a way to reduce training costs and minimize hiring risks. Companies argue that experienced hires will need less onboarding and can contribute right away. However, research from Harvard Business Review shows that overqualified candidates do not outperform those who are appropriately matched to the role. In fact, the focus on experience over potential can lead to missed opportunities for both employers and applicants. The Wharton School's Peter Capelli points out that many organizations underinvest in training and development, preferring to hire ready-made employees rather than cultivate talent from within. This short-term thinking may save money up front, but has long-term consequences for workforce stability and growth. AI-driven screening and increased selectivity also have unintended side effects. Automated systems often overlook qualities like adaptability, problem-solving, and willingness to learn, traits that can be more valuable than a perfect resume match. While companies believe they're reducing risk, they may actually be excluding candidates who could bring fresh perspectives and drive innovation. The pressure to meet inflated requirements discourages applicants from even trying, shrinking the pool of potential hires and contributing to a less diverse workforce. Beyond the immediate hiring process, these practices impact the broader talent pipeline. By raising entry barriers, companies forego the chance to develop new talent and create a sustainable path for internal advancement. This lack of investment in early career employees eventually leads to shortages in higher-level roles, as there are fewer qualified candidates ready to step up. Some sectors already report difficulty filling mid-career positions, a direct result of underinvesting in entry-level hiring and training. Companies may believe that hiring overqualified candidates for junior roles is a smart way to get more for less, but this logic rarely holds up in practice. The consequences of this strategy become even clearer when looking at the real costs associated with overqualification. The hidden costs of overqualification. When companies fill entry-level roles with overqualified candidates, they often overlook the subtle but significant downsides. Studies from Portland State University and published in Harvard Business Review show that overqualified hires do not outperform their less experienced peers in these positions. Their extra experience rarely translates into better results, and they tend to plateau quickly. The mismatch between their skills and the work at hand can lead to frustration, disengagement, and eventually, a decision to leave. This cycle of turnover is costly, not just in recruitment efforts, but in lost time and disrupted teams. Reduced investment in training compounds the issue. Harvard Business Review notes a general trend of declining corporate training budgets, even as companies raise experience requirements for new hires. This paradox means that even those with advanced credentials are often left to navigate their roles with minimal guidance. Overqualified employees expecting their backgrounds to exempt them from basic onboarding grow dissatisfied when support is lacking. Meanwhile, true entry-level candidates, if hired at all, are left without the foundational training they need, which can stunt their growth and confidence. The lack of mentorship opportunities further erodes organizational health. When companies bypass genuine entry-level hiring, they disrupt the traditional transfer of institutional knowledge. Research from Cornell University shows that internal hires, those who rise through the ranks, outperform external hires due to their understanding of company culture and processes. Without a steady influx of new talent to mentor, senior employees have fewer opportunities to pass on their expertise, weakening the pipeline for future leadership and continuity. Innovation suffers as well. Fresh graduates and early career workers tend to bring new ideas and challenge established routines. Overqualified employees, on the other hand, often default to methods that worked in previous roles, which can stifle creativity. Teams with authentic entry-level hires have been found to generate more innovative ideas and adapt more readily to change. When companies prioritize experience over potential, they risk creating a workforce less capable of responding to evolving challenges. There are also financial consequences that aren't immediately obvious. While overqualified hires may accept lower salaries at first, they often expect rapid advancement or higher pay soon after joining. This expectation can clog promotion pipelines and increase pressure on HR departments to manage retention. Frequent departures among overqualified staff lead to repeated recruitment costs, disrupt team morale, and undermine long-term planning. Some organizations report significantly higher spending on retention efforts for these employees compared to those hired at the appropriate level. Client-facing roles reveal another layer of risk. Overqualified hires may lack patience for the foundational tasks that come with entry-level jobs. Rushing through these basics can result in mistakes that damage client relationships. By contrast, employees who are genuinely new to the field often approach their work with more care, leading to higher satisfaction among clients and stakeholders. Cultural fit is frequently overlooked in the rush to hire experience. Overqualified employees can struggle with organizational hierarchies, especially when reporting to managers with less experience or different backgrounds. This dynamic can create friction within teams, leading to more frequent interpersonal conflicts and a less cohesive work environment. Some companies are starting to recognize these hidden costs and are adjusting their hiring strategies. Approaches like running parallel tracks for career changers and true entry-level candidates, or adopting skills-based hiring models, have shown promise. These methods help align expectations and reduce turnover, while also fostering a more diverse and adaptable workforce. Renewed investment in training and mentorship, along with realistic performance benchmarks, further supports retention and growth for all employees. The cumulative effect of these practices is a job market where the barriers to entry are higher than ever, but the rewards for persistence and adaptability remain uncertain. For job seekers, the process of landing that first role has become more demanding, setting the stage for a search that tests both patience and resilience. The applicant's nightmare. For many applicants, the modern job search feels like an endurance test with no guarantee of reward. The process drags on for months. LinkedIn reports that the average job search for new graduates now stretches 5 to 6 months, a significant increase from just a year ago. During this time, job seekers juggle applications, interviews, and networking efforts, all while managing the uncertainty that comes with each unanswered email. The emotional toll is hard to ignore. 79% of job seekers say they experience anxiety during the search, and 1 in 5 report their anxiety as extreme. The most common frustration, according to the American Psychological Association, is simply waiting to hear back from employers. 46% cite this as their main source of stress, a figure that outpaces concerns about rejection or finding the right roles. The landscape has shifted in other ways too. Quick apply tools on job boards make it easy to submit dozens of applications in a single sitting, but they also flood hiring systems with a wave of low-effort resumes. For every thoughtful application, there are dozens more sent off with a single click, making it harder for qualified candidates to stand out. The result is a paradox. Job seekers spend more time customizing their materials, yet feel less visible than ever. Many applicants describe their efforts as vanishing into a void, with no feedback or acknowledgement, which only deepens their frustration. Financial strain is another constant pressure. Prolonged job searches can drain savings and force difficult choices. The American Psychological Association finds that financial uncertainty is one of the top stressors for Americans, especially when combined with the costs of relocation, student loan repayments, and daily expenses. For recent graduates, the situation is particularly challenging. Many accept part-time or survival jobs that don't use their degrees just to cover basic needs. This leads to underemployment, a problem that now affects 41.2% of recent graduates, according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Those who start their careers in roles unrelated to their field or at lower pay often face a long-term earnings penalty, lagging behind peers who land degree-matched jobs right away. The complexity of job postings adds another layer of difficulty. Requirements seem to shift from week to week, with some positions adding extra certifications or experience overnight. Salary ranges may change mid-process, or postings disappear and reappear with minor tweaks. This inconsistency leaves applicants confused about what employers actually want, and many spend hours tailoring applications for jobs that might not even exist by the time they're ready to submit. Networking, once a straightforward process, has become more demanding. It's no longer enough to send a polite message or connect on LinkedIn. Today's job seekers are expected to engage in a flurry of online activity, commenting on posts, attending virtual events, and maintaining a visible presence on multiple platforms. Despite these efforts, only 12% say that networking led to interviews in the past year, yet the expectation to keep up with these activities continues to grow. The rise of AI-driven screening systems has introduced a new set of challenges. Applicants now spend hours reworking their resumes to match automated filters, often guessing at the right keywords and formats to get past digital gatekeepers. Some report making a dozen or more versions of the same resume for similar roles, unsure if any will reach a human reviewer. The process is opaque, and the lack of feedback leaves candidates questioning whether their applications were even seen. Interview processes, too, have become more demanding. It's now common to face 4 or 5 rounds of interviews for roles that once required only 2, with take-home assignments that can consume an entire weekend. Many candidates invest 40 hours or more in a single company's process, often without any compensation or assurance of progress. As the process drags on, completion rates drop and frustration mounts. These obstacles have real consequences for career development. Extended searches push many applicants into roles below their qualifications, making it difficult to catch up later. In fields with rigid promotion tracks, like finance or consulting, starting in the wrong role can close doors for years to come. The cumulative effect is a job market that feels impenetrable, even for those who do everything right. Beneath all these challenges, one factor quietly shapes the experience of nearly every applicant: the growing reliance on automated screening and resume filters. The next phase of the search isn't just about effort or qualifications. It's about navigating a system where algorithms decide who gets seen and who gets left behind. The AI screening arms race. Recruitment in 2025 has become a contest between increasingly sophisticated algorithms and job seekers racing to keep up. Nearly every major employer now relies on AI to sort and filter applicants, with Insight Global reporting that 99% of hiring managers use some form of AI in their process. This shift is not just about efficiency. It's about managing overwhelming application volume and extracting patterns from data that would be impossible for humans to process alone. As the AI talent acquisition market grows toward a projected $1.35 billion in value by the end of the year, companies view these systems as essential for handling the administrative load and broadening their reach. Applicant tracking systems, ATS, are now the gatekeepers for almost every corporate job, with 98% of Fortune 500 companies using them. These systems scan for targeted keywords, employment dates, and even formatting elements. Job seekers respond by tailoring each resume to match the exact language of a posting, often revising documents a dozen times for similar roles. The process rewards those who can decode the algorithm, not necessarily those who bring the best skills or experience. As a result, candidates spend hours analyzing job descriptions, running their resumes through optimization software, and tweaking phrasing to avoid being weeded out by automated filters. An entire industry has grown up around this reality. AI-powered resume builders and optimization platforms, like JobSkin and Resi, promise to help applicants beat the bots. For a fee, they analyze how closely a resume matches a job description and suggest changes to improve the odds of passing initial screening. These tools have become a standard part of the job search toolkit, but they also introduce new pressures. Candidates now feel compelled to invest in services just to compete, adding to the financial burden of unemployment. The pressure to stand out in a sea of algorithmically filtered resumes has led to a rise in questionable tactics. According to a recent Capterra survey, 58% of job seekers use AI to assist with their applications, and 83% admit to exaggerating or misrepresenting their skills with the help of these tools. This creates a cycle where both sides, employers and applicants, are locked in a technological arms race, each trying to outmaneuver the other's algorithms. For recruiters, distinguishing between genuinely qualified candidates and those whose applications have been artificially enhanced becomes even more difficult. AI screening is not without unintended consequences. Automated systems can reject qualified candidates for reasons as minor as a missing keyword or an unconventional job title. Formatting choices, employment gaps, or non-traditional education paths can all trigger false negatives. Harvard Business Review has found that these systems frequently filter out strong applicants based on arbitrary criteria, leading to missed opportunities for both employers and job seekers. Bias remains a persistent problem, despite claims that AI can create fairer hiring processes. Algorithms trained on historical data may replicate or even amplify past discrimination, downgrading resumes based on names, affiliations, or other subtle markers. While some companies attempt to audit and adjust their systems, these efforts are uneven and often lag behind the rapid evolution of AI tools. The financial implications for job seekers are significant. Many spend hundreds of dollars on resume services, premium job board subscriptions, and optimization tools. For those already struggling, this extra cost can be a barrier to even getting noticed, further entrenching inequality in the hiring process. Technical fields and business programs have started to adapt, teaching students how to phrase their experience for AI systems and providing guidance on keyword strategies. Humanities graduates and those from non-traditional backgrounds, however, are often left at a disadvantage, lacking institutional support to navigate these new hurdles. While some companies experiment with alternatives, like skill-based assessments or blinded resume reviews, these approaches remain the exception. The majority continue to rely on AI-driven filters, shaping a hiring landscape where technology, rather than human judgment, sets the terms of entry. This digital arms race has become the norm, and the consequences ripple outward, affecting who gets a chance at even the most basic opportunities. As the hiring process grows more reliant on automation, another barrier emerges for those hoping to gain a foothold. The expectation of hands-on experience. The expectation of prior experience has become a defining obstacle for anyone trying to start a career. The so-called experience catch, 22, shapes every stage of early professional life. You need experience to get the job, but you can't get experience without already having a job. This cycle is most visible in internships, which have shifted from optional resume padding to a near-mandatory step for entry-level roles. Recent data shows that 73% of entry-level postings now require or prefer internship experience, a sharp increase from just a few years ago. But even internships themselves often demand previous experience, sometimes in the form of prior internships, relevant coursework, or technical skills, locking out those who haven't already found a way in. Unpaid internships are especially common in industries like media, entertainment, and nonprofits, where 84% of available positions offer no compensation. The ability to work for free is a privilege not everyone can afford. Students from higher income backgrounds are far more likely to take unpaid roles, while those from working class or first-generation families gravitate toward paid opportunities when they exist. This creates a filter that selects for financial security rather than talent or potential. The result is a professional landscape where access to critical early experience depends less on merit and more on family resources. The rise of micro-internships was supposed to broaden access, but these short-term stints, often just a few weeks, usually unpaid, have created new challenges. Micro-internships rarely offer meaningful training or mentorship, and many participants report never receiving feedback on their work. Despite their limitations, they have quickly become another requirement for job seekers. Nearly half of recent graduates now complete multiple micro-internships before landing a full-time role, treating each one as a box to check rather than a true learning opportunity. Conversion rates from internship to full-time employment further complicate the picture. While companies often promote internships as pipelines to permanent jobs, the numbers show a different reality. Only 37% of unpaid interns receive full-time offers, compared to 63% of paid interns. Even among paid positions, conversion rates have declined in recent years, as some organizations cycle through interns without real intent to hire. In fields like publishing and entertainment, full-time conversion can be below 20%, revealing how internships sometimes function more as a source of temporary labor than a path to a career. For first-generation professionals, the barriers are even higher. Without family connections or industry knowledge, it's more difficult to find and secure valuable internships. Those who do land opportunities are often forced into unpaid arrangements, sometimes working overtime without compensation. Many juggle multiple jobs alongside internships, which limits their ability to network or excel. Missing out on early internships makes it harder to access future opportunities, compounding the disadvantage. Networking and social capital play a significant role in who gets through the door. Well-connected students use family or alumni ties to access exclusive internships at top firms, while others rely on standard applications with much lower success rates. Elite schools often have dedicated pipelines to prestigious employers, while students at state schools or community colleges compete for a shrinking pool of open positions. The expectation to complete several internships before graduation is now standard in fields like finance, consulting, and tech, favoring those who can afford to prioritize unpaid or low-paid work over other responsibilities. Some industries have set up their own forms of the Catch-22. Architecture firms require hours of licensure experience, but won't hire unlicensed candidates. Law offices want paralegal experience for entry-level legal assistant roles. Healthcare administration expects clinical hours, even for desk jobs. These requirements force candidates into expensive certification programs or unrelated jobs just to meet arbitrary thresholds. Despite these systemic problems, the internship model persists. Companies continue to frame internships as stepping stones based on merit, while schools require them for graduation without ensuring quality or fair pay. The result is a workforce where many start out in debt, having worked for free just to qualify for jobs that are still labeled entry-level. These barriers don't just shape who gets hired, they influence the entire structure of early careers. As expectations around experience and internships rise, the meaning of entry-level roles continues to blur, with job titles often masking responsibilities and requirements that go far beyond what the label implies. When entry-level isn't entry-level, job postings in 2025 often present a confusing picture of what entry-level work actually means. Titles like Associate Marketing Coordinator or Junior Software Engineer appear straightforward, but a closer look at the responsibilities tells a different story. It's common to find so-called entry-level roles that require managing teams, overseeing substantial budgets, or taking ownership of entire projects. Tasks that just a few years ago would have belonged to mid-level or even senior staff. Employers use these inflated titles to attract ambitious applicants while justifying lower pay, which makes it harder for job seekers to assess whether a role is truly suited for someone starting out. This trend is visible across industries. In tech, junior positions now routinely require candidates to have shipped production-ready applications or to have experience with complex system design. In finance, the title analyst can mean anything from a recent graduate crunching spreadsheets to someone with years of hands-on experience running client portfolios. Even in marketing and education, roles with coordinator or assistant director in the title often demand skills and experience well beyond what most early career professionals possess. Title inflation isn't just a matter of semantics, it has real financial consequences. When responsibilities outpace the title, workers often earn less than their contributions warrant. Research shows that employees in these mismatched roles typically make 18 to 22% less than peers doing equivalent work under more accurate job titles. The confusion around titles also makes salary negotiations more difficult. Applicants can't reliably compare offers or benchmark pay when the same title means something different at every company. This ambiguity benefits employers, allowing them to offer lower compensation while making the job sound more prestigious. Responsibility creep adds to the problem. As companies look to cut costs and do more with fewer people, entry-level roles quietly absorb tasks that used to be handled by more experienced staff. A 2025 survey found that over half of associate positions now require experience and skills that would have been considered mid-level work before the pandemic. Employees find themselves handling duties 2 pay grades above their official level, but without the corresponding salary or recognition. These practices affect long-term career development. Workers in title-inflated roles often wait much longer for promotions because they're already performing at a higher level than their title suggests. Some never advance at all. Companies simply continue to add responsibilities without updating the title or compensation. This stagnation can trap employees in roles that look impressive on paper but offer little real mobility. Certain sectors show particularly stark mismatches between title and authority. In healthcare administration, roles like practice manager may come with significant operational duties but little actual decision-making power. In education, assistant director titles are now attached to positions that used to be straightforward coordinator jobs, creating confusion for candidates and employers alike. The problem extends to transitions between companies or industries. Workers who try to move find that their inflated title doesn't carry the same weight elsewhere. A senior associate at one firm might only qualify for an entry-level position at another, making it difficult to advance or even maintain their previous status. This can discourage people from seeking new opportunities, trapping them in stagnant roles out of fear of losing hard-earned titles. Employers often justify these practices as necessary for managing high application volumes. By raising requirements and inflating titles, they believe they can filter for candidates who are ready to contribute immediately, reducing training costs. But the broader impact is a workforce where expectations are unclear, compensation is inconsistent, and career paths are harder to navigate. The disconnect between job titles and actual responsibilities leaves many workers feeling undervalued and frustrated. As these practices become more common, workers and candidates have started to push back. Some demand clearer leveling frameworks and more transparent job descriptions. Unionized fields have managed to maintain clearer distinctions between roles, but most sectors remain mired in ambiguity. The result is a labor market where trust in job postings continues to erode, and applicants become increasingly skeptical about what any given title really means. This erosion of clarity and trust in job titles is only one part of the broader frustration facing job seekers. The next challenge comes when applicants try to engage with employers, only to encounter a wall of silence. The ghosting epidemic. Ghosting has become a defining feature of the 2025 job search. For many applicants, the silence is more than just an inconvenience. It's a constant reminder of how impersonal and transactional the hiring process has become. According to recent surveys, only a small fraction of applications receive any kind of response, and the odds drop even further after interviews. It's not uncommon for candidates to invest hours, sometimes days, preparing for multiple interview rounds, only to be met with complete silence. This lack of acknowledgement isn't just a minor etiquette lapse. It's a product of automated systems and overwhelming application volumes that make individualized feedback rare. Automation drives much of this disconnect. Applicant tracking systems process thousands of resumes, automatically filtering out the majority without human review. Some systems send out generic rejections, but many don't bother. As a result, candidates are left wondering whether their application was ever seen by a real person. Recruiters, overwhelmed by the sheer number of submissions, especially as mass applications become the norm, struggle to keep up. Many manage dozens of open roles at once, making personal follow-ups nearly impossible. Even when recruiters want to provide closure, the systems and time simply aren't there. The psychological impact of ghosting is significant. Nearly 4 out of 5 job seekers report anxiety during their search, and a notable portion describe their stress as extreme. The uncertainty of waiting for a response, never knowing if an application has been received or considered, creates a persistent feeling of unease. Over half of job seekers say that waiting to hear back is the most stressful part of the process, surpassing the sting of outright rejection. For many, The silence erodes their sense of professional worth, especially after investing time and effort into customized resumes, cover letters, and interview preparation. This erosion of communication damages more than just individual morale. It shapes how candidates view entire industries. Reviews mentioning ghosting have spiked in recent years, and the reputation of employers suffers as a result. Many applicants say they would not reapply to companies that ghosted them and would actively discourage others from doing so. The irony is clear. Organizations spend heavily on employer branding, yet undermine their reputation by failing at the most basic level of candidate communication. Employers often rationalize ghosting as a necessary efficiency. Faced with thousands of applications, many of them bulk submissions aided by AI tools, they argue that responding to each one is unrealistic. But this approach has hidden costs. Candidates who feel ignored are less likely to accept offers, even if they make it to the final round. Extended vacancies and repeated hiring cycles become more common, and the overall cost to fill a position rises. Companies that prioritize clear communication, even if it's automated, fill roles faster and enjoy better candidate experiences, as data consistently shows. Ghosting also amplifies inequality in the hiring process. Applicants without strong networks or insider connections have no way to bypass automated systems or follow up directly. Those from less prestigious backgrounds are especially vulnerable to being filtered out and forgotten, while candidates with personal referrals or alumni ties are more likely to receive responses. This dynamic compounds existing barriers and leaves many talented people on the outside looking in. The interview process can be particularly demoralizing. Candidates often complete several rounds, tackle assessments, and even provide unpaid work samples, only to be met with silence. These experiences leave a lasting mark, shaping how job seekers view not just individual companies, but the entire hiring process. Some respond by tracking every application and follow up in detailed spreadsheets, while others limit their efforts to roles where they have a personal connection, further narrowing their opportunities. Recruiters themselves are not immune to the pressures of ghosting. Many express frustration at their inability to provide updates or feedback, citing overwhelming workloads and rigid systems. The very tools meant to streamline hiring have, in many cases, made genuine communication harder. Despite these challenges, solutions are straightforward. Simple status updates, clear timelines, and basic training for interviewers could resolve much of the frustration. Yet most organizations resist, seeing hiring as a one-sided process rather than a mutual exchange. The longer this status quo persists, the more companies risk losing out on talent that remembers how they were treated. The cumulative effect of ghosting is a workforce that feels disconnected and undervalued. When the process is this opaque and impersonal, trust in hiring systems erodes. Job seekers adapt, but the toll on confidence and mental health is unmistakable. As the market continues to evolve, new barriers emerge, ones that often require applicants to pay for the privilege of being considered at all. The certification boom. The rise of certifications has reshaped the landscape for anyone trying to break into a new field. What used to be a straightforward path, earn a degree, apply for jobs, now includes an ever-expanding list of credentials that employers consider essential, even for the most junior roles. Tech job postings, for example, frequently request CompTIA, AWS, or Google Cloud certifications as a baseline. Marketing and administrative roles often list requirements for HubSpot, Google Analytics, or even productivity software badges that barely existed a few years ago. The message is clear: a degree alone is no longer enough. Not all certifications carry the same weight, and their impact on hiring odds varies widely. In technical fields, cloud computing credentials like AWS can boost callback rates by as much as 20%, and some certifications correlate with starting salaries 15 to 25% higher than those without. But the value drops off quickly for others. Project management certifications, despite their high cost, often add little advantage for true entry-level roles. Some credentials, such as Microsoft Office Specialist, offer only a marginal improvement in hiring odds. The effectiveness of a certification depends heavily on both the industry and the reputation of the issuing body, which forces job seekers to research carefully before investing time and money. The financial burden of these credentials is significant. Entry-level candidates routinely spend over $1,000 on exams, prep courses, and renewal fees. Some tech certifications cost several $100s just to sit the exam, not including study materials or retake fees. For those from less advantaged backgrounds, the cost is a major barrier. First-generation college graduates are far less likely to hold multiple certifications, often citing expense as the main reason. This creates a system where candidates with more financial resources start with a clear advantage, while others are left behind before the hiring process even begins. Employer support for certification costs is inconsistent. A minority of companies offer full reimbursement upfront, while others provide partial repayment only after a year or more of employment. Many offer no financial help at all, even when certifications are required for the job. Some firms try to attract candidates with small certification bonuses, but these rarely cover the true expense. The result is a system where job seekers must gamble on costly credentials without any guarantee of a return. The pace of credential inflation only accelerates the problem. Certifications that once set candidates apart quickly become the new minimum standard as more people obtain them. New programs emerge every year, each promising to give applicants a hiring edge, but as adoption spreads, the advantage fades. In some fields, credentials lose half their hiring power in less than 2 years. Companies continue to add new requirements, using certifications as a convenient filter rather than a true measure of skill. Quality among certification programs varies widely. Some require rigorous exams and practical demonstrations of skill, while others are little more than participation badges. Employers rarely distinguish between the two, which means applicants feel pressure to collect as many as possible, regardless of their actual value. Screening software and HR staff often spend just a few seconds scanning for keywords, making it difficult for genuine expertise to stand out. Certain industries have turned certifications into artificial barriers. Administrative and healthcare roles that once required only a high school diploma now demand expensive credentials. Training programs and exams can cost thousands, with additional fees for renewal every few years. These ongoing costs create a steady stream of revenue for credentialing organizations while putting more pressure on workers. For many, the promise that certifications would replace degree requirements has not played out as advertised. While some employers have dropped the 4-year degree from job postings, most simply substitute a new set of certifications in its place. Bootcamp graduates and career changers often discover that they need even more credentials to compete, turning the supposedly more accessible route into another expensive hurdle. Marketing for these programs routinely overstates the benefits, touting high employment rates that often include temporary or unpaid work. Only a small fraction of credentialing organizations publish transparent outcome data, and when they do, the results are modest. Certified candidates may earn slightly more than their uncertified peers, but the difference is often smaller than the cost of obtaining and maintaining the certification itself. As credential requirements continue to multiply, job seekers face a moving target. The drive to stand out leads many to accumulate more certifications, but this only raises the bar for everyone. The system rewards those who can afford to keep up, reinforcing existing inequalities. While a handful of industries still value portfolios or real-world projects, most corporate roles now treat certifications as non-negotiable. For those navigating early careers, the pressure to collect credentials is only one of many new realities. The next obstacle comes from changes in where and how people work, factors that have introduced their own set of barriers for those just starting out. The remote work double standard. Remote work in 2025 has introduced a new set of hurdles for early career professionals. Instead of making jobs more accessible, remote entry-level roles now come with higher expectations and stricter requirements than their in-office counterparts. Job postings for remote associate positions routinely demand more years of experience, with tech jobs as a prime example. Junior developer roles that are remote often list an average of 2.7 years of experience required, compared to 1.9 years for similar on-site positions. It's common to see remote listings asking for candidates who have already built entire data pipelines or shipped production-ready projects solo, tasks that would have been considered mid-level work not long ago. This shift is rooted in a prove-yourself-first approach. Employers assume that remote workers won't have as much direct supervision, so they look for hires who can immediately perform without much onboarding. Surveys of hiring managers show a stark difference in expectations. 72% prefer experienced hires for remote roles, while only 48% say the same for in-office positions. For new graduates or career changers, this creates a catch-22. They need remote experience to get a remote job, but can't get that experience without already having one. Startups, in particular, have reduced graduate hiring dramatically, often insisting that remote employees hit the ground running with little support. Compensation adds another layer of complexity. Many companies peg remote salaries to the employee's location rather than the value of the role itself. A junior UX designer based in San Francisco may earn $85,000, while someone with the same qualifications in Texas gets $62,000 for identical work. Some organizations take this further by advertising global salary bands, paying drastically different rates for the same job depending on the country. This isn't about cost of living adjustments. It's about paying less for the same work, simply based on geography. The oversight of remote junior workers is also more intense. Entry-level employees are far more likely to be monitored with tracking software than their senior colleagues. Tools like time trackers, screen capture programs, and keystroke loggers have become standard in many distributed teams. New hires report having to install multiple monitoring applications, creating a work environment where they feel constantly watched rather than supported. This level of surveillance is stressful, especially for those just starting their careers. Promotion and feedback are harder to come by for remote starters. Data shows that remote junior employees wait longer for promotions and receive less feedback than their in-office peers, despite producing similar results. The lack of face-to-face interaction means their contributions are often overlooked. In some companies, remote junior staff are promoted at significantly lower rates, which can delay career advancement and widen long-term earning gaps. Technical roles are especially affected by this double standard. Remote cloud engineering or software development positions often require experience that would typically qualify someone for a senior role if they were working on-site. Job postings routinely ask for candidates who have independently shipped production applications or managed complex systems on their own. These expectations put remote entry-level roles out of reach for most new graduates, favoring those who already have substantial experience. Some companies take remote micromanagement further, expecting new hires to maintain constant online presence, respond instantly during core hours, and submit detailed productivity breakdowns. These requirements can lead to excessively long workdays and heightened stress, especially for junior staff who lack the leverage to push back. Geographic pay disparities and monitoring aren't the only challenges. In consulting and other industries, firms hire junior staff in lower-cost regions to work on projects for clients in higher-wage countries, paying a fraction of what the same work would command elsewhere. This practice creates a two-tier system where compensation depends more on location than on skill or output. A cottage industry has sprung up to help remote workers appear more productive, with services and tools designed to boost monitored metrics. Some use mouse jigglers or automated scripts to simulate constant activity, highlighting how the focus on surveillance can undermine actual work quality. The long-term consequence is that remote starters often find themselves stuck in junior roles for longer periods. Without in-person networking and visibility, they are more easily overlooked for advancement. On average, remote employees take nearly 2 years longer to reach managerial positions than those who start in office, and this delay can compound over the course of a career. While a handful of companies have begun to address these disparities by aligning experience requirements and offering structured remote onboarding, most still hold remote entry-level candidates to a higher standard. For many, this makes remote opportunities more theoretical than real, especially for those at the beginning of their careers. As these barriers continue to mount, employers increasingly look for evidence that candidates can drive results on their own. The side hustle requirement, often demanding more than just a degree or prior job experience. The expectation that entry-level candidates should have a side hustle or portfolio project has become a standard part of the hiring process. What once counted as an optional bonus is now a baseline requirement. Most job postings for junior roles explicitly ask for portfolios, side projects, or evidence of freelance work. Employers look for proof that candidates have built something on their own time, whether it's a personal website, a GitHub repository, a design portfolio, or even a small online business. In fields like digital marketing, software development, and design, The absence of these extras can mean an application is dismissed without a second look. The professional social media requirement has grown in parallel. LinkedIn is no longer just a digital resume. It's a public measure of activity and engagement. Recruiters routinely check how often a candidate posts, the quality of their interactions, and even the size of their network. Some roles expect applicants to have a visible presence on other platforms too. Designers are asked for Dribbble or Behance profiles, developers for GitHub contributions, and marketers for content on Twitter or TikTok. Employers see this activity as a marker of industry passion and up-to-date skills, even when it has little to do with the actual work. Maintaining this level of visibility takes considerable time. Building and updating portfolios, posting regularly, and documenting side projects can easily consume over 10 hours each week. Many candidates spend evenings and weekends polishing their online profiles, refining project write-ups, and creating content to fill out their portfolios. The time commitment is especially steep for those juggling school, part-time jobs, or family obligations. Students who work to support themselves are at a distinct disadvantage, often unable to match the volume of unpaid work produced by peers with more free time and financial support. The cost of building a competitive portfolio isn't just measured in hours. Quality hosting, specialized software, and even basic equipment add up quickly. Some candidates pay for professional templates or portfolio reviews, further widening the gap between those who can afford to invest and those who can't. Data shows that students working more than 20 hours per week complete far fewer side projects than those with less outside responsibility, yet the hiring process rarely accounts for these differences. Instead, it rewards visible output over practical experience gained in paid roles. Employers often use portfolios as a first-round filter, but the value of these projects in the final decision is inconsistent. Candidates with extensive side work do receive more interview invitations, but this advantage narrows at the offer stage. Some hiring managers admit they skim portfolios for activity rather than substance, prioritizing frequency of updates or the number of projects over depth and quality. This dynamic encourages performative busyness. Candidates learn to maximize visible output, sometimes at the expense of genuine learning or academic work. The pressure to produce side projects has led to shortcuts and questionable practices. Some applicants exaggerate their roles in collaborative projects or purchase pre-made portfolio pieces. Others focus on flashy but shallow work that looks impressive at a glance, but lacks substance. In creative fields, companies sometimes go further, requesting complete mock campaigns or sample projects as part of the application, blurring the line between evaluation and unpaid labor. The long-term impact is a generation of early career workers who feel compelled to be productive at all times. Burnout rates among new graduates have risen sharply, with many reporting anxiety over maintaining their online presence and portfolio metrics. The expectation to be constantly working, even outside of paid employment, becomes ingrained before a career has even started. Some candidates are starting to push back. They focus their efforts on a few high-impact projects, highlight relevant paid work, or negotiate portfolio requirements during the hiring process. A handful of employers are beginning to value substance over volume, but these are still the exception. For most, the side hustle requirement remains a significant hurdle, one that favors those with resources and time to spare. As these expectations become more entrenched, many applicants find themselves facing a new reality. Even after investing in unpaid work and self-promotion, the path to stable employment is far from guaranteed. The next obstacle often comes in the form of contract roles, which have quietly replaced traditional entry-level jobs as the default starting point for many graduates. The contract work trap. For many new graduates, the first offer they receive is for a contract role rather than a permanent position. These arrangements are pitched as stepping stones, a chance to gain experience, prove yourself, and potentially earn a full-time spot. In reality, contract work often means accepting less security, fewer benefits, and a constant sense of uncertainty. Contracts typically last from 6 to 9 months, with no assurance of renewal or conversion, and rarely include health insurance, paid leave, or retirement contributions. The financial strain is immediate. Contractors must cover their own insurance, often at steep monthly rates, and go without the 401k matches or bonuses that permanent staff receive. The divide between contractors and full-time employees is visible in more than just paychecks. Contractors are often excluded from training, mentorship, and team events, even when they work alongside permanent staff on the same projects. They may miss out on annual raises, professional development, and even the small perks that signal inclusion, like invitations to company celebrations or access to internal resources. While staff employees move up established promotion tracks, contractors are left to renegotiate their terms with every new assignment, rarely seeing more than a modest bump in pay, if any. Despite promises of contract to hire, the odds of moving into a permanent role are slim. Conversion rates hover around 1 in 3, and in some industries, they're even lower. Many companies extend contracts repeatedly or rotate through new contractors instead of offering full-time positions. Some maintain policies that quietly discourage conversions, even as they advertise opportunities for advancement. This approach allows employers to keep their workforce flexible and costs down, but it leaves workers in a holding pattern, unable to plan for the future or build financial stability. The impact on long-term career growth is substantial. Contractors are less likely to receive mentorship or formal feedback, which stunts their professional development. Over time, the gap between contract and full-time starters widens. Permanent employees earn more promotions, build stronger networks, and accumulate retirement savings at a much faster rate. For contractors, each gap between assignments means lost income and stalled momentum. Some find themselves cycling through contract after contract, struggling to break into permanent roles even as they rack up years of relevant experience. Recruiters and hiring managers often reinforce this cycle. A history filled with contract roles can be seen as a red flag, making it harder to land a full-time offer. Many applicants report being funneled back into temporary work, regardless of their qualifications. This creates a two-tiered workforce where those who start as contractors find it harder to catch up, both financially and professionally. The trend is especially pronounced in certain industries. Tech and marketing lead in the use of contract labor for entry-level work, but even fields once known for stable employment, like accounting and healthcare administration, now rely heavily on temporary staff. Companies benefit from the flexibility and reduced obligations, but the result is a growing population of workers with patchwork resumes and little long-term security. Financially, contract workers lose out on more than just salary. The absence of benefits adds up over time, eroding savings and retirement prospects. Many contractors report dipping into personal funds during gaps between assignments, and few have access to the safety nets that help permanent employees weather setbacks. The psychological toll is just as real. Contractors describe feeling excluded, undervalued, and constantly anxious about their future. A handful of companies have started to address these disparities, offering partial benefits or clearer conversion paths. But these remain exceptions in a landscape where temporary work is the default and stability is elusive. Most applicants have little choice but to accept contract roles, knowing that turning them down often means prolonged unemployment. The contract work trap has become a defining feature of the entry-level market, shaping not just paychecks but entire career trajectories. As the hiring landscape continues to shift, many employers claim they're making progress by rethinking traditional requirements. Yet the reality for job seekers is often more complicated than the headlines suggest. The skills versus degree debate. The conversation about what matters most for landing a job, skills or a degree, has taken on new urgency as hiring practices evolve. Companies frequently announce that they're dropping degree requirements, especially in tech, and highlight this as a move toward a more inclusive job market. But for most applicants, the process hasn't become any easier. Instead of a diploma, candidates now face more demanding skills assessments, longer technical screenings, and complex take-home projects. Coding tests that once took a couple of hours have ballooned into assignments that can stretch over an entire weekend. One applicant described being asked to build a full-stack prototype for a junior developer role, a project that would normally require a team effort. The result is a hiring process that's just as exclusionary, only with different hurdles. In some industries, the shift towards skills is more talk than reality. Healthcare, education, and engineering still require formal degrees for nearly all entry-level positions. Even in tech, specialized roles like AI research or quantum computing continue to demand advanced degrees. While a growing number of companies have relaxed requirements for generalist roles, the most prestigious or technical jobs remain out of reach for those without traditional credentials. The promise of skills-based hiring is unevenly distributed, with real progress limited to certain sectors and locations. Alternative credentials, boot camps, online courses, and digital badges have become a booming industry. Platforms like Credly and Accredible now offer ways to verify these skills, and some employers do consider them. Still, hiring managers often see these credentials as useful only when paired with impressive work samples or portfolios. In practice, traditional degrees remain the default, and alternative credentials serve as a tiebreaker rather than a true replacement. The economics of education have changed, but not always in favor of job seekers. Computer science graduates often leave school with significant debt, but they typically reach higher salary milestones more quickly than bootcamp graduates. Boot camps offer a faster, cheaper route into the workforce, but the long-term earning gap remains. Degree holders tend to reach six-figure salaries several years sooner, making the return on investment for traditional education stronger over time, even as upfront costs deter many from pursuing that path. Skills assessments have grown more rigorous as companies seek to filter candidates without relying on degrees. Technical interviews now include live debugging, architecture design, and code reviews of flawed samples. Some applicants report being assigned projects that would bill out at over $1,000 if done as freelance work. These assessments demand significant time and energy, often disadvantaging those with family or job commitments who can't afford to spend days on unpaid tasks. Certifications have emerged as a new form of credential. In cloud computing, for example, AWS and Azure certifications are now more common than computer science degrees. Digital marketing roles look for Google Analytics or HubSpot credentials. While these alternatives can open doors, they shift the cost burden onto candidates who may spend hundreds of dollars on exams and annual renewals just to stay competitive. Geographic disparities persist, despite the rhetoric of a skills-based revolution. Rural job seekers face higher degree requirements than their urban counterparts, and regional differences in hiring practices remain stark. In some states, a degree is still required for the majority of remote roles, while tech hubs on the coasts are more likely to accept alternative credentials. Universities have struggled to adapt. Many still teach outdated programming languages or focus on theory rather than the tools and platforms used in industry. Business programs emphasize case studies, yet employers want hands-on experience with specific software. This disconnect leaves graduates underprepared for the realities of the job market. Hiring managers routinely report that academic credentials alone are a poor predictor of job readiness. Applicant tracking systems reinforce the old divides. Automated screeners often prioritize degree holders, even when job postings claim to accept alternative credentials. Experiments show that identical resumes listing a degree receive more callbacks than those without, regardless of stated requirements. The technology behind hiring has not caught up with policy changes, keeping the playing field uneven. Some industries have actually moved backward, increasing degree requirements even as others move away from them. Finance and law, for example, have tightened credential demands, making it harder for candidates with alternative backgrounds to find entry points. Military veterans and career changers encounter these contradictions firsthand. Years of hands-on experience can be overlooked in favor of a recent graduate with the right diploma. Employers say they want skills, but hiring systems and cultural biases still favor traditional pathways. Companies that invest in employee training and upskilling are more likely to hire candidates without degrees, but overall, training budgets have declined. Most employers still expect new hires to arrive fully prepared, rather than developing talent internally. Salary transparency laws reveal that degree holders consistently earn more, even in jobs where a degree is not officially required. The debate over skills versus degrees often misses the underlying issue: hiring. Practices still prioritize credentials over demonstrated ability. Employers complain about a lack of qualified talent, yet continue to filter candidates based on arbitrary markers. Until hiring systems focus on what candidates can actually do, rather than what they've studied or where they've worked, the promise of a more open and skills-based job market will remain unfulfilled. As these contradictions persist, another force is reshaping the entry-level landscape, one that exposes job seekers to a much wider range of competitors than ever before. The global talent pool effect. Remote work has shifted the hiring landscape, making global competition the norm for entry-level candidates. Instead of facing peers from the same city or country, applicants now go up against job seekers from every corner of the world. Companies openly recruit internationally, advertising roles as global, and setting pay scales that reflect local market rates. A junior developer in California might find themselves directly competing with candidates in Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe, where employers can offer salaries that are a fraction of what's standard in the US or Western Europe. This widening pool means that qualifications alone rarely determine who gets hired. Location, willingness to accept lower pay, and even the ability to work odd hours all factor in. Salary disparities have become stark. A data analyst role might pay $65,000 in New York, but only $18,000 in Buenos Aires, with companies listing multiple salary bands for the same job depending on where the candidate lives. Some tech firms post identical positions with pay ranging from $85,000 for U.S. hires to less than $30,000 for those based in Latin America or Asia. These differences put local candidates in high-wage countries under pressure to lower their expectations or risk being passed over. Many recent graduates report adjusting their salary targets downward by as much as 30% after seeing what international competitors are willing to accept. In some cases, applicants take on multiple part-time roles just to match the income they would have earned in a single job before remote hiring became widespread. Visa sponsorship has all but vanished for junior roles. Companies often avoid the paperwork and expense when they can simply hire someone abroad with similar skills. Only a small percentage of employers now sponsor visas for entry-level jobs, and when they do, the requirements are so high that most applicants are filtered out before they even get an interview. This shift makes it even harder for international graduates in high-cost countries to stay after finishing their studies. Time zone overlap is another filter. Many remote jobs require candidates to work at least 4 to 6 hours in sync with headquarters, effectively excluding entire regions from consideration. A support role based in London might require U.S. East Coast hours, making it nearly impossible for qualified applicants in Asia or Australia to participate. Some companies go further, insisting that all remote employees work on the same schedule as the main office, regardless of where they live. This policy can turn remote work into a night shift for those in the wrong part of the world, undermining any promise of flexibility. Language expectations have grown as well. Where English fluency once sufficed for most remote jobs, many postings now list multiple languages as preferred or even required. Entry-level roles in customer service, marketing, and sales increasingly ask for proficiency in Spanish, German, Mandarin, or French. Some companies test language skills during interviews, sometimes switching languages without warning to see how candidates respond. This trend favors multilingual applicants and adds another hurdle for those who are not. The length of the hiring process has also changed. With a global pool to choose from, employers take longer to review applications, compare candidates, and make offers. Entry-level roles that once filled in a few weeks now remain open for months. Applicants often wait 8 to 12 weeks for a decision, and some see jobs reposted as companies hold out for the perfect candidate from anywhere in the world. Geographic pay differences are aggressively exploited in some sectors. Consulting firms, for instance, hire analysts in lower-cost countries to serve high-fee clients elsewhere, paying local wages while billing international rates. Tech companies set up satellite teams in less expensive regions, keeping only a core group at headquarters. This two-tier system maximizes profits but depresses wages and limits advancement for remote hires outside major markets. Applicants have started to adapt by masking their locations. Some use VPNs or borrow addresses to appear as if they live in preferred regions, while others pay for virtual presence services that provide local phone numbers and mailing addresses. These tactics highlight how much geography still matters, even in a supposedly borderless job market. Companies claim global hiring increases diversity, but in practice, teams often cluster by region. Time zone differences and language barriers mean certain groups dominate meetings and decision-making, leaving others isolated or excluded from key conversations. The effects of this shift are still unfolding. Local talent pipelines dry up as companies look abroad, and universities in high-cost countries see enrollment drop as students question the value of degrees that no longer guarantee a foothold in the job market. Some industries already face shortages of skilled workers at home after years of outsourcing junior roles. For now, workers in high-wage countries must either lower their expectations or prepare for longer, more uncertain job searches. The pressure to stand out in a global crowd has never been greater, and every advantage, no matter how small, can make a difference. In this environment, even the details of a candidate's online presence can determine whether they make it through the first round of screening. The LinkedIn profile arms race. For job seekers, LinkedIn has become a high-stakes battleground where every detail of a profile can influence hiring outcomes. The platform's algorithms now play a central role in determining which candidates surface in recruiter searches, and the pressure to optimize every section has never been greater. Achieving an all-star profile status increases visibility dramatically, so users routinely add skills, certifications, and even short-term jobs to hit algorithmic benchmarks. Many pad their profiles with skills they've barely used or list every minor freelance project, knowing that each addition can boost their chances of appearing in search results. LinkedIn's paid features add another layer to this competition. Premium subscriptions promise increased visibility and insights into who's viewing your profile, but the actual advantage is limited. Premium users might see a modest bump in recruiter searches, but the main benefit is access to analytics and the ability to message recruiters directly. Despite the marketing, these features don't guarantee more job offers or interview invitations. Many users pay for months of premium access, tracking profile views and in-mail statistics, only to find that the real difference comes from how well their profile matches job descriptions, not their subscription tier. Posting activity has become a strategic necessity. The platform's data shows that weekly posts can increase profile views, but there's a narrow margin between staying visible and being flagged as spam. Users carefully schedule professional updates, sharing industry articles, or repackaging old work to maintain a steady stream of activity. This routine often feels performative, as applicants focus on meeting algorithmic expectations rather than sharing meaningful insights. The engagement metrics, likes, comments, and shares, carry weight, but they rarely translate into actual job opportunities. Endorsements and recommendations are now more than just nice-to-have extras. Recruiters use endorsement counts as filters, so users often trade endorsements with acquaintances to inflate their numbers. It's common for professionals to agree on mutual endorsements, even when they haven't worked together directly. The result is a system where the appearance of credibility can outweigh actual experience, and genuine endorsements are often buried among dozens of superficial ones. The gap between profile views and tangible results is wide. Only a small percentage of recruiter views lead to interview invitations, and many job seekers misinterpret profile traffic as genuine interest. Recruiters often mass view profiles as part of their sourcing process, narrowing their pool only after the initial scan. This can create a cycle of false hope and added stress, as candidates wait for responses that rarely come. Features like Open to Work add complexity. While intended to signal availability, the badge sometimes works against candidates. Some recruiters admit to skipping over profiles with the banner, assuming those users are less selective or in greater need. This perception can disadvantage applicants, even when they meet all the job requirements. The skills section has grown into a keyword contest. Where a handful of relevant skills once sufficed, competitive profiles now list a dozen or more. Recruiters search by skills but rarely verify them, so many users add trending keywords or inflate their expertise to match job postings. This practice rewards those who can best anticipate algorithmic filters, rather than those with the most relevant experience. Other profile elements have also evolved. The featured section, once optional, is now a showcase for work samples and media. Top profiles display curated portfolios, and applicants sometimes create new projects solely for this section, prioritizing LinkedIn's requirements over real-world impact. Profile photos and banner images follow unwritten rules. Certain backgrounds and smiling expressions consistently outperform others, leading to a wave of near-identical headshots and designed banners. Many invest in professional photography or graphic design, adding to the cost of job searching. The About section and experience entries have grown longer and more keyword-dense. Applicants mirror job description language and expand bullet points to maximize searchability, often at the expense of clarity or authenticity. The result is a flood of profiles that look similar, making it harder for recruiters to distinguish between candidates. In the rush to optimize every element, job seekers spend increasing amounts of time and money maintaining their LinkedIn presence. The process favors those who can invest in professional services and who understand the platform's evolving algorithms. For others, the profile arms race is just another barrier, one more hoop to jump through before even reaching the next stage of the hiring process. The reference verification and reference checks have quietly become one of the most demanding and unpredictable steps in the job search. What used to be a quick confirmation with a supervisor now often turns into a drawn-out process with multiple layers of scrutiny. Companies that once asked for 3 references now routinely request 5 or more, sometimes insisting on direct contact with every manager a candidate has had in the last 7 years. For recent graduates, freelancers, or those who have worked for small or dissolved businesses, meeting these demands can be nearly impossible. The rise in reference requirements tracks with growing employer skepticism, especially after the hiring mistakes that followed pandemic-era labor shortages. Employers now see references as a critical tool for skills-based hiring, using them to validate not just employment history, but also the specific abilities a candidate claims to have. This new reality has created a market for professional reference checking services. Companies like Kroshk and Skill Survey automate the process, sending lengthy surveys to former managers and colleagues. These forms can run to 25 or more detailed questions, rating everything from teamwork to technical skills on a numerical scale. Some services even charge candidates directly, turning reference verification into another out-of-pocket expense for job seekers. It's not unusual for applicants to spend several $100s verifying multiple roles, all before receiving a single offer. The burden is especially high for those changing industries, who may have few contacts familiar with their new field. Career changers report spending significantly more time securing relevant references, and some admit to using questionable tactics, like listing freelance projects or stretching the truth about past collaborations to meet the requirements. The system is far from efficient. Response rates for reference requests have dropped sharply. Only about 60% are answered, compared to over 80% just a few years ago. Busy professionals often ignore automated emails, and privacy concerns in fields like healthcare make it even harder to get timely replies. Employers, meanwhile, have little patience for delays. Many reject candidates outright if references don't respond within a couple of days, regardless of the reason. Applicants find themselves chasing down old contacts, coordinating schedules, and sometimes losing out on jobs because a former boss is traveling or slow to reply. References now carry more weight than ever. Employers use them to break ties between similar candidates, with some checking references before even scheduling interviews. The process encourages job seekers to provide only the most enthusiastic contacts, which discourages honest feedback and can turn the entire system into a formality. Some HR managers admit that anything less than glowing praise counts as a red flag. This dynamic penalizes candidates with non-traditional backgrounds, limited networks, or careers that haven't followed a straight line. First-generation professionals and self-taught workers, in particular, struggle to provide references that meet employer expectations. Automation has introduced its own set of problems. Algorithms scan reference responses for keywords, sometimes misinterpreting neutral or honest feedback as negative. A manager's comment that an employee met expectations might be flagged as a concern, while more nuanced or contextual responses are lost in translation. This reliance on automated systems can result in strong candidates being filtered out for reasons that have little to do with their actual performance. The effort required from references has increased as well. What used to be a 5-minute phone call is now a structured interview or a series of detailed online forms. Some references are contacted multiple times for different stages of the hiring process, leading to frustration and fatigue. As a result, people are less willing to serve as references, especially for early career professionals who may need them most. Networks shrink, and the pool of available referees becomes even more limited. Despite all this, research shows that references are a weak predictor of future job performance. Employers continue to rely on them because they offer a sense of control in an uncertain process. The ritual of reference checking persists, even as it adds time, cost, and stress to an already difficult search. For applicants, this is just one more stage where the odds seem stacked against them, and where the process feels less about finding talent and more about clearing hurdles. Each additional requirement extends the hiring timeline and raises the stakes for every application. For many, the reference gauntlet is only the prelude to what comes next, a hiring process that demands even more time, energy, and patience before a final decision is made. The interview marathon, interviewing for an entry-level job. In 2025 means bracing for a process that tests patience as much as ability. The typical candidate now faces nearly 5 rounds of interviews for a single position, with tech roles frequently stretching to 6 or more. It's not unusual for applicants to meet with a parade of interviewers, complete multiple take-home assignments, and still see positions frozen or canceled at the last minute. What was once a straightforward evaluation has grown into a drawn-out ordeal with little correlation to actual job performance. Take-home projects have become a fixture. Instead of brief skills checks, candidates are often asked to spend 8 to 12 hours on unpaid work, building applications, designing marketing campaigns, or responding to lengthy creative briefs. These assignments are rarely acknowledged or rewarded, and only a minority of applicants receive feedback. Some report seeing their work used by companies without credit or compensation, reinforcing the sense that the process exploits rather than evaluates. The demands add up quickly. Job seekers routinely invest 30 or more hours each week just preparing for interviews and completing assignments, on top of searching and applying. For those juggling part-time jobs or family obligations, the time commitment is unsustainable. One recent graduate tracked more than 80 hours spent on a single company's process, only to receive a form rejection. The cumulative unpaid labor can easily rival a part-time job, with no guarantee of a return. As the rounds pile up, candidates drop out. Data shows that nearly half of applicants withdraw by the 4th stage, and fewer than a third complete take-home tasks estimated to take more than 5 hours. Employers often interpret this as a lack of commitment, but for most, it's a practical response to unreasonable expectations. Recruiters admit to flagging late-stage withdrawals as red flags, rarely considering the toll of marathon processes. Feedback from candidates paints a bleak picture. Fewer than 1 in 5 rate their interview experience positively. Common complaints include repetitive questioning, lack of coordination between interviewers, and long stretches with no communication. Many describe being asked the same competency questions by different people or waiting weeks between rounds with no updates. These experiences damage company reputations. More than 2/3 of candidates say they would avoid reapplying to firms with poor interview practices. Despite the added complexity, longer processes don't deliver better results. The average time to hire has climbed to 44 days, but first-year turnover rates remain unchanged. Most of the delay comes from risk-averse managers reluctant to make decisions, not from meaningful vetting. Some HR leaders acknowledge that extra rounds are often added simply because stakeholders can't agree, not because candidates need more scrutiny. Entry-level hiring now mirrors the intensity once reserved for executive searches. Junior applicants face panel interviews, case studies, technical screenings, and repeated culture assessments, sometimes more than those applying for senior roles. The lack of coordination leads to redundant assessments, with some candidates completing multiple versions of the same test. These inefficiencies waste company resources and convince candidates that the organization is disorganized. The financial and personal costs of marathon interviews are real. Applicants spend on travel, technology, attire, and even childcare, all for roles that may never materialize. Many turn down other opportunities or lose out on unemployment benefits just to remain available for drawn-out processes. Ghosting remains common, with most candidates hearing nothing after investing significant time and effort. Some job seekers try to set boundaries, limiting the number of rounds they'll attend or negotiating for paid assignments. But in a tight job market, most feel compelled to comply. The imbalance of power leaves candidates accepting ever-increasing demands, simply for a shot at entry-level work. This sprawling, inefficient system persists even though the drawbacks are clear for both sides. Roles remain vacant for months, productivity is lost, and companies risk alienating the very talent they hope to attract. Yet, there are organizations beginning to question whether this level of complexity is necessary. Not every employer is content to keep repeating the same mistakes. Breaking the cycle. Some organizations are taking concrete steps to fix the broken hiring process. Scale AI, for example, eliminated degree requirements and uses blind skills assessments for technical roles. Their standardized coding tests are evaluated by algorithms that ignore demographic details and educational background. Candidates complete realistic work samples under timed conditions, but without the expectation of unpaid take-home projects. This approach has led to a 37% increase in hiring, underrepresented candidates, and reduced time to fill by over 3 weeks. Importantly, it also uncovers capable applicants from non-traditional backgrounds, including self-taught programmers and career changers who would have been overlooked in a traditional resume screen. IBM has shifted its focus to skills-based hiring, replacing resume scans with structured behavioral interviews and practical skills validation. The results are measurable. Hiring cycles are nearly twice as fast, and first-year retention rates have improved. The company also discovered a pool of internal talent, employees who already had the necessary skills but lacked the conventional credentials. This shift allowed IBM to fill roles more efficiently and recognize the potential of staff who might have otherwise been passed over. Smaller companies are experimenting with their own alternatives. Design agency Jin Lane, for instance, swapped out lengthy interview processes for paid trial projects. Candidates are brought in for a few days of real client work at market rates. This approach screens for actual ability and fairness, and the agency's offer acceptance rate climbed sharply as a result. While there is an upfront investment, the company found it more cost-effective than enduring prolonged vacancies or making poor hires after flawed interviews. Skills-first pilots at larger firms are producing similar outcomes. Google's Project Exposure, which hired based solely on work samples for technical roles, included candidates with backgrounds in teaching, military service, and other non-traditional fields. After 6 months, these new hires performed on par with peers who followed traditional career paths. Amazon and Microsoft have run comparable experiments, finding that non-degree hires meet or exceed expectations in the majority of cases. Industry-wide initiatives are also gaining traction. Tech Hire, a nonprofit, works with over 100 companies to set realistic entry standards and prioritize skills assessments over arbitrary experience requirements. Participating organizations report more diverse hiring outcomes and lower recruiting costs. By moving together, these firms avoid the competitive disadvantage that might come from lowering barriers unilaterally. Regulatory changes are pushing some sectors forward. States like Maryland and Colorado restrict degree and salary history requirements for public jobs, which has led to increased internal mobility and broader applicant pools. Private employers are following suit, with companies like Walmart dropping degree requirements for most corporate roles after seeing positive results in the public sector. Other industries have adapted out of necessity. Hospitals facing nursing shortages have adopted apprenticeship programs, allowing candidates to train on the job while earning a wage. This model bypasses the experience required trap and has improved retention rates. Construction trades have long used union programs that blend paid work with classroom learning, showing that structured training can build a skilled workforce without unrealistic entry barriers. Professional associations are also driving reform. The ACPA's Accounting Plus initiative encourages firms to hire candidates with analytical skills, regardless of major, using tailored assessments to evaluate potential. Firms report that these hires often excel in client-facing roles and catch up technically within months, expanding the talent pipeline without sacrificing standards. Even large consulting firms are rethinking their internal pipelines. EY introduced structured promotion timelines for entry-level staff, reducing external hiring costs and improving team continuity. This move highlights how excessive experience requirements can mask a lack of investment in internal development. Transparency is another effective tool. Companies like Buffer publish detailed rubrics outlining exactly how roles are evaluated. Candidates know what skills will be assessed and how performance is measured, reducing confusion and holding evaluators accountable. This clarity leads to fewer disagreements among hiring managers and gives candidates meaningful feedback. These examples show that skills assessments and structured processes consistently identify potential more effectively than resume reviews or arbitrary filters. Investing in practical evaluation saves money and time compared to prolonged vacancies and repeated hiring cycles. The organizations making these changes aren't acting out of charity. They're improving outcomes and gaining an edge over competitors that cling to outdated hiring practices. While these reforms are promising, they remain the exception. For most applicants, the reality is still a maze of requirements and uncertainty. Understanding which strategies offer the best chance of success is more important than ever. Survival strategies for applicants. Navigating the 2025 job market requires a strategic, disciplined approach. Survival. Strategies for applicants center on understanding where real opportunities come from, how to stand out in a crowded field, and which efforts actually yield results. Relying on mass applications rarely works. Candidates who focus on a small number of well-researched roles and tailor their outreach to specific teams or hiring managers see much higher response rates. For example, reaching out with insights about a company's recent projects or sending a concise message to a hiring manager can open doors that generic applications cannot. Company career pages remain the most productive source for openings. Most hires come from internal postings rather than public job boards. Setting up alerts for these postings and applying within the first 72 hours significantly improves chances, as early applications are more likely to be seen. Decoding job descriptions is an essential skill. Some roles with 2 to 3 years of experience listed are open to strong entry-level candidates, especially if the requirements are flexible or the company is known for hiring new grads. On the other hand, postings asking for 5 or more years of experience are seldom negotiable. Salary transparency is another clue. Jobs that don't list pay ranges often offer below-market compensation. Quick apply features on job boards may seem convenient, but they usually draw large volumes of applicants, making it harder to stand out. Targeting less competitive, more tailored postings yields better results. Graduate programs and rotational roles are still the most accessible entry points for new professionals, and monitoring these closely can lead to more interviews. Investing in credentials should be done with care. Not all certifications are created equal, and piling on credentials without a clear strategy can waste both time and money. Focus on certifications that consistently appear in job descriptions for your target roles. Technical fields often value AWS or Google Cloud certifications, which tend to generate more interview requests than general IT credentials. When possible, take advantage of university or employer-sponsored vouchers and ask about reimbursement policies before paying out of pocket. 3 targeted, relevant certifications are more effective than a long list of unrelated ones. Networking remains the most reliable way to access hidden opportunities. Up to 70% of jobs are filled through connections rather than public postings. AI-driven networking platforms like Lunch Club and active participation in industry-specific online groups can yield better results than cold LinkedIn outreach. The best networkers focus on building genuine relationships and offering value, sharing leads, making introductions, or following up with relevant information. Informational interviews work best when they're specific and focused on the challenges a team is facing, rather than broad career advice. Many successful candidates land referrals by showing how their skills solve a problem the company is actively discussing. Alternative pathways can also accelerate the job search. Contract work, micro-internships, and volunteer projects provide tangible experience and can lead directly to full-time roles. Nonprofits and government agencies often have lower barriers to entry and are more likely to hire candidates without extensive experience. Creating your own projects or freelancing in your target field not only demonstrates initiative, but also builds a portfolio that hiring managers can review. Documenting these experiences and framing them in terms of measurable results, such as budgets managed or projects completed, makes them more compelling on a resume. Tactical adjustments matter. Submitting applications midweek during business hours increases the likelihood of being seen by recruiters. Standard resume formats that are compatible with applicant tracking systems, such as those provided by reputable universities, can help ensure your application isn't filtered out prematurely. Following up once or twice after applying demonstrates persistence, but excessive follow-ups can hurt your chances. Tracking which approaches work by logging application dates, resume versions, and responses helps applicants refine their strategy over time. The gig economy remains a practical option for building skills and bridging gaps between full-time roles. Freelance work in your field can lead to permanent offers, and even unrelated gigs can be reframed to highlight relevant skills. The key is being selective about which gigs to accept and making sure they add value to your overall career story. Applicants who approach the process methodically, tracking patterns, refining their tactics, and focusing on evidence rather than hope, are best positioned to make progress in a difficult market. While these strategies don't guarantee success, they offer a practical way to navigate a system that often feels stacked against new entrants. The reality is that the entry-level job market remains deeply flawed, and many barriers are outside individual control. But with a disciplined, informed approach, it's still possible to move forward, even when the odds seem long. The entry-level job market in 2025 remains defined by shifting expectations, the rise of AI, and persistent barriers for new graduates. Unemployment among recent college graduates stands at 5.8%, and 85% of new job losses since mid-2023 have been among first-time workers. As AI automates many starter roles and employers raise the bar for experience, the traditional path from college to career is increasingly blocked. Some experts warn that half of all white-collar entry-level jobs could disappear within 5 years, putting further strain on the talent pipeline. This system is not sustainable. Companies risk future shortages as fewer workers gain foundational experience. If you've found an entry-level posting with impossible requirements, share it below. Next week, we'll look at how to build experience when entry-level doors stay closed.